So, Caden, Graham and Aid, thank you for taking some time out of your schedules to do this. So, how did you have a good Christmas?
Yeah, nice, quiet family Christmas. Difficult under circumstances, not going out seeing family and friends, but it's the world we live in at the moment.
Yeah, mine was all right, playing with the kids mainly, and that's what it's all about. Apart from that, was working, because obviously doing what I do, I don't really, we don't get Christmas. This is our Christmas period now, it's usually quieter, so.
I missed the football most on Boxing Day. Obviously, we're going to have a local derby against Russia, and obviously you've got Danny coming back and former manager, more former players. Would have been a great day, hopefully, for us.
Yeah, very disappointing not being able to be allowed to have football. We obviously had one part where we was informed we had to close because we was wrongly categorised, which was disappointing. We missed one of our big games because of it. And then we was obviously moved into a different tier anyway for safety. So maybe in hindsight, it's a good thing for people's safety and health, because at the moment, that is a priority for us, whilst the football is important. But yeah, we missed the Boxing Day and the New Year's Day game. That would have been two huge games for us. Was really looking forward to it, and legs chopped from under us yet again.
Yeah, the Russian game was, it's always nice to play on Boxing Day anyway. Obviously, with Danny coming back, like you said, and obviously I know Mr. McDonald's former manager at the club, would have been a good game for everybody. But as Grace says, it's something that I think the world's changed a lot. If you'd have asked me, I think we did ask him in December, I was disappointed not to be playing. I was disappointed that we didn't have fans in. Right now, if I'm honest, it was the right decision, because the world's changed, and at the moment we've just got to live with it. Football's very important, but at the same time, as Grace says, health and safety has to come first, and right now that's our main priority.
It's 2021, lockdown free, and non-league season is once again on pause. So what are your thoughts about the statement from the Trident Leagues, and what's the club's position on the survey?
In terms of the statements, I can see Graham straight angry and worried about what I'm going to say. Now, no. I've got certain issues with the leadership of both the league and the FA and the way it's been handled. Again, as I said, I understand right now there's a certain situation going on in the world that we can't do anything about. I do think there's been a lack of leadership. I think there's been situations that could have been handled a hell of a lot better, and there's also been certain things that were said that were going to happen that haven't. In terms of the survey, we're still waiting for it. I presume that the FA have forgotten that football exists below step 2 again, so it might take them a couple of weeks to get back on track with that. But my honest opinion is yes, right now it has to be stopped. But yeah, I'm just disappointed. I find it amazing that perhaps football, coronavirus understands the difference between the National League North and the Southern Premier.
Yeah, I think adding to that as well from our side, it was, we obviously all sat in a meeting where there was a vote whether to pause the league or not. It was pretty much unanimous to pause the league, because only certain clubs could play with fans and most clubs couldn't. And that obviously got worse and worse. It was agreed that we would all reconvene and have another vote, to which has not happened. The day before the statement was made, I actually spoke to the league, and I chased personally on an update and said, what's going on? You've continued the pause on the league without involving the clubs, but we as clubs had all agreed to reconvene and vote on this. What's going on? Why haven't we been involved, etc. I've got a holding sort of, there will be a statement released shortly, and the following day the statement came out, and whilst they've asked for our vote, to which, as I said, the survey's not come out, it's pretty much already written on the wall sort of thing, where they've already said we think it should be null and void. I don't really see what the point of us voting is when that statement's already in there, because it pretty much already tells us what will happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen different options muted. I think a lot of it obviously depends on the situation that happens in the country with the vaccine rollout and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, I personally think it's really harsh to just declare the whole season null and void. Not so much on clubs like ourselves, but clubs who are, teams like House Owen, South Shields in the Northern League, teams that were pretty much nailed on last year to go, had it ripped away from them. And then we're just going to null and void it without exploring any other options. Now, I'm not saying that there is a workable solution. I'm saying that there's no discussion going on. This is the issue we've got of exploring other options, perhaps a shortened season, play each team less, I don't know, regionalise it. A lot of different discussions that could be had. I just think it's rung on, as I say, it's not so much us. I think it's rung on a lot of clubs, the way it's been handled.
So regardless...
Sorry, Dan. I mean, at present, we are currently on hold. We've been asked many times, is it null and void? What's happening? We are on pause. Once they, as we expect them to do, declare it null and void, if that is the case, then we will, again, be quite vocal about what we as a club will be up to. We do have plans in place, everything from what will we do next, if we are allowed to play football, but the league is null and void, we have a plan for that. A quite exciting plan, to be fair, isn't it, Aid?
Yeah.
So there will be something, I shan't say too much in this one, but there will be something that will be rolled out for whatever we're allowed to do in the remainder of this season as such. We'll also be in contact with everyone regarding sponsors, season ticket holders, etc., to make sure not only they're fairly looked after, but very fairly looked after. We want to look after everybody who's looking after us. It's as simple as that.
So regardless whether the season continues or not, it wouldn't be right if we didn't have fans in. So if the season was to restart, would you carry on playing with only 300 fans allowed? Would it have to be 600 fans plus allowed?
No. Unless we're allowed 600 fans plus in, we will not be playing football. It would absolutely destroy us as a club to try and play with 300 fans. It's more economic from a club's point of view to be closed than it is to try and play with 300 fans. We've always said from the start, we want the club sustainable. That's an important factor. We want the club to be here, not today, not tomorrow, but in 10 years' time. And if we make decisions that could affect that, that would be reckless of both of us. And we're not prepared to make those sort of decisions. And if that meant we upset the league, we upset absolutely anybody to do the right thing for our club, so be it.
Yeah, just echoing that really. The simple fact is, as Graham says, we've always said we're trying to build something that's sustainable and sustainable long after we've gone as well. Many years from now, and if we make a bad decision now, that could damage the club's sustainability for the future. So, as much again, totally agree with Graham. We're not going to do something just because we're told to do it by the league or the FA. We will act in the best interest of Hednesford Towm. So
in terms of the survey, do you believe it'd be a case of clubs at the top perhaps wanting to some form of carrying on the season and clubs down the bottom perhaps wanting to null and void it?
Probably. Human nature is what it is. People will always do what's in their best interest. As I just said, we'll do what's best for Hednesford Towm. Teams at the top are going to want to carry on because they've got a chance of going up. Teams at the bottom, of course, they're going to want to null and void it. It was the same scenario that happened last season in that sense. Although there wasn't a vote last season, I know it was just sort of decided that was what was happening. And possibly a little too early. I'd say last season they jumped the gun on that decision, but there you go. Yeah, I think teams are naturally going to act to their own interests. We're in a strange situation. The league table is slightly false, as we've said. We know that in terms of our league position. If it restarted, I wouldn't be concerned about us getting relegated at all, whether that's arrogance, cockiness, or whatever people want to call it. But I think there are clubs that would have that genuine fear. So they will go out against it. And of course, in reverse to that, if we were at the top of the table, I'd be banging the drum right now, throwing every dummy out the pram. You know.
What about you, Graham?
Yeah, I totally agree. Me and Ed actually had this conversation. We actually thought that the top 8 clubs would say we want to carry on. Everybody else would say no, and the majority vote would be null and void. As Ed said, we actually looked at it, and whilst we're not in a great league position right now, we are confident of the ability of the players, the club strength, the fan base, everything around the club. We truly believe that given a month's worth of games and a little run of results, which we believe we could do, we've seen our performances when the guys were on their A game, we could actually quite quickly find ourselves playoff contenders quite quickly. Get it, whether we did that or not, we don't know, but we believe we could get there. Was it the Bromsgrove game, mate, that truly showed the colours and was absolutely flawed?
4-1 go.
So if we play to our true abilities, we was quite comfortable where we would be as a club. We didn't have the start we wanted, but that was starting to change. Obviously, the Cups wasn't ideal for us. Lots of circumstances, but at the end of the day, there's no excuses. But that's why we're addressing what we're addressing in the team as well. You take, for example, on the Cup game at Welwyn Garden City, Ben Bailey was unable to play the game, having travelled down, no fault of his own. And all of a sudden, we making do with putting a position a player out of position, and at a minute's notice, it's never going to be easy to do. They was well drilled. To be fair, they was a very strong team. They had a game plan and it worked, and fair play to them. But we've already started addressing that by the signing that was made yesterday.
So regarding non-league clubs at our level, do you think there'd be a case of perhaps having to restructure it, steps 3 to 6?
I think there's the case for that. I think a lot depends on the vaccine rollout. I think if we are going to go into another season in August, September time, and there is a risk of any kind that it's going to be a similar situation, I think there's got to be a restructure, because I think the simple fact is that you cannot ask clubs to continue to put money into football, whether that's players' wages, pitch maintenance, the million things you have to pay for, with no realistic prospect of the season finishing. I've spoken to several chairmen who at the start of the season openly stated they were doing it because it was the right thing to do for their supporters, but they had zero confidence the league season would finish. Now, I think we felt slightly different. I do think the new variant has obviously changed it with the coronavirus and all that. Had that new variant not been in place, perhaps we would have been coming back in January, I don't know. But even with that, there's got to be some kind of a plan. They cannot go into another season with a let's see what happens attitude, because the fact is that's what's cost us this time as non-league football, because they've gone into the season and gone, let's see what happens, and lo and behold, there was no plan. So now all of a sudden everyone's scratching around and going, what do we do? We spoke about this, me and Graham did, in end of November, when the last lockdown happened. It was already starting to look difficult then because of the number of fixtures, because again, taking into account the weather, we wouldn't have been playing at the moment anyway. In most, well, I say we wouldn't have been, most games would be called off on a grass pitch with this weather at the moment because, you know, they're flood. There has to be a better plan. They cannot just go, we're going to wing it and see what happens. Yes, last season was unprecedented. I had a lot of sympathy for them last season. This season, I've got very little sympathy because it's not unprecedented. It's literally a mirror of 12 months ago. And in my opinion, the FA, the Trident Leagues and everybody else involved in non-league football administration have made a big error by doing exactly the same as they did last time, just going, let's see what happens.
Well, I think the most confusing thing for us as a club is why is the league above allowed to play football, gaining grant funding to allow them to play football? How are they any different to us? If it was broken off at League Two, that makes sense.
Or even conference, because most of them are full-time clubs.
Yeah, but to be the league above and for them to be getting grant funding, and at the moment we're being offered loans to which we still haven't even been told how you get the loans. And when you break it down to how much the amount of clubs that are eligible for these loans anyway, it would work out to probably 2 weeks worth of running costs. So what is the point of taking a loan on in the first place? As we said earlier, we're not going to put Hednesford Towm in a position that makes Hednesford Towm in a bad position. And we believe that we should be receiving a lot more grant funding than we are, because the cost of standing still is astronomical and there's no income.
So in hindsight, do you think it was a mistake to null and void last season?
It's difficult to say because you have to take the scenario as it is. In hindsight, you would say, why not play the season over 2 seasons? That would be the easy answer. But
or over the summer, and they could have ended last season during the summer. But at the same time, and I think Graham was about to say it before I jumped in there, I think nobody knew last year what was going to be the state by the summer because it was so new. The bigger issue I've got is going into this season with no plan.
So you may be aware of the winter survival package. I think it's about £300 million and 40 million for steps 3 to 6. Is this something that you've looked at or would consider if it was a grant?
Any grants are welcomely received. The latest one is a build base grant of up to £25,000. But the reality is, unless you're doing a building project, you're not eligible for it. So
yeah, the works we did in the summer, we've already asked the question. I know Graham, in an email conversation with Graham and with people involved in it the other day, the grant doesn't appear to be eligible for people who did it in the summer. So the works we did last summer, if we'd have waited till now, we'd have had the grant for. But
yeah, there's a lot of talk of all these grants, but there's very little coming forward in terms of, yes, you're eligible and this is how you get it. Like I say, we haven't still been technically told about how we get our hands on even the loans that's been discussed. There's over £300 million worth of loans being allocated towards clubs, steps 3 to 7. Nobody knows how to get it. What's the point of talking about it if we're not going to be told how to get hold of cash to help the clubs? At the end of the day, we've took the view. We're Hednesford Towm. I actually asked the specific question, and I was told we've got to row our own canoe. It's as simple as that. And that's pretty much the view we've now taken and gone, all right then, don't get me wrong, there's a small amount of grant funding coming through in terms of business rate relief and a small amount in terms of grants from the local
grants, not FA grants. Though.
Yes, which we are appreciative of, but it's nowhere near enough to cover costs. So what me and Aid have done is sat there, had a conversation and said, right, okay, sod it. We'll keep on looking after the club. We took it on. We knew the risks. That's what we're doing. And yes, it's took a financial impact on both of us. But Salavi, we're here to save the club and move it forward positively. That's what we said we'd do, and that's what we're doing. And we're not going to ask the fans to put their hands in the pockets to help us because we believe that the finance is so dramatic and large that it would barely scratch the surface. And we don't feel it's right when everyone else is having their own personal financial issues because they're out of jobs, they're in lockdown scenarios, they've got family to look after. Even me and Aid's in the same position as that. But we're here to try and save the club, and that's what we're trying to do.
So roughly, sorry, Ed, you can carry on.
No, it's all right. Yeah, just so basically, Graham's quite right. Again, I've seen fans discussing different things on Facebook and on forums, and I don't want us to come across as unappreciative, because we're genuinely not. And anyone who knows me knows how much I've sort of fell in love with the fans and the relationship I've got with them. For me, I don't see why, if we stand there rattling buckets, as it were, the simple fact is we're still not going to cover the bills, and all we're going to do is take money out of people's pockets for no apparent reason, who've already put money into this club, whether it's buying a shirt, whether it's buying a ticket, you know, everything, every penny that they're putting in, buying a pint behind the bar. It wouldn't be right, and it's not something we'll do, because again, it's not going to cover the costs. And the clubs that do it, it's their choice to do, but I doubt very much that they're doing anything other than covering some of it. It's very unlikely to cover any more than that. So no, it won't be something we ever do. But I do want to thank those fans who've made offers, because it is really nice.
Yeah, it is massively.
I've been speaking to one of our fans over the Christmas period. He believes football will be back when people in the vulnerable category start to have the vaccine. Do you think this is likely to happen, or will it be a slow trickle getting fans back into stadiums?
My guess is that we'll be playing league football again the start of next season, and as I say, we've got something lined up between now and then, if we are allowed to have games on. I would suspect that we would be talking April before we're allowed games on. So between April and end of July, August time, something else will be happening, which will be an exciting project for all clubs involved, because there's not just us.
For me, I think a lot of it depends on the key mark for me will be when they open pubs. I think I don't, in terms of when the vulnerable are vaccinated, the problem is we're trying to guess government policy, and I don't claim to know any government policy, or to even begin to understand what those guys have had to do and things like that. So I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not particularly political in that way. But for me, for my comfort, and I think Graham's the same, I'd like to see at least the vulnerable in society and those who are in the high-risk categories vaccinated before we'd be comfortable. Because of this new variant, it is different to before. Our fans were fantastic. I know there was one or two goal celebrations that perhaps went slightly awry, but generally our fans were really good. They were really receptive. Speaking of more security teams, they were really receptive to the social distancing and the measures we put in place, which was great. But with this new variant being so prolific, as it were, I wouldn't want to see fans back in until it's right. So for me, I think you could be talking April, May, and that's a guess, and that is literally just a guess, though.
This is what the Barwell manager said in one tweet. He says, "Let me give you some advice. Nobody's interested anymore in this season. End the season now. Concentrate on your personal lives, work and families, and start again next season." What are your thoughts on the statement? Do you agree with him?
I agree with him in part. I do agree that right now in particular, everybody out there should be concentrating on their friends, their family, making sure, you know, people who are isolated, you speak to them on the phone, things like that. Totally. I don't necessarily agree that forget the season, nobody's interested, because I think that, again, there's a lot of people who are very passionate about their clubs. I'm not saying for 1 minute the Barwell manager isn't, by the way, there. It's just a different opinion. I wouldn't say that nobody's interested. I'd say that people are very upset. And again, it goes back to what I've said several times over the fact there's no plan, there's no leadership, and it's just guesswork. But I do agree with the statement in terms of right now, you know, health's first.
You got anything to add, Graham, on that?
No, everyone will have their own opinion. Everyone's been affected in different ways. People have lost loved ones and people close to them. people have had it. It affects everyone in a different way. Even myself, I couldn't see my 2 teenage daughters on Christmas Day because of it. It's difficult, and you can't do right for doing wrong, because for every person that says, yes, this is right, somebody else will say, no, it's not. All we can do is really sit back, wait for the powers that be to decide when things are safe and risk is minimal. There'll always be a risk, I believe, now for the whole of our lifetime, because it's no different to catching the flu, is it? Other than it's a bit more serious. It's the flu affects a lot of people. It creates a lot of deaths every year, but we've learned to live with it. There will be that stage where, from an economic point of view of the world, the government will say life must continue, but it's got to be done in a managed, safe way. I'm surprised, as an economic state, we haven't just pressed pause on everything. That would have created a true lockdown. I see so many people still going out and doing daily lives that they don't need to. And then we wonder why this is taking forever to go away. And we've had 3 lockdowns. People aren't paying attention, and people aren't listening. People aren't doing as they're told, because they're bulletproof in comparison to someone else, which they're not. They can pass it on, and that's how things continue to go on and on and on. This will never stop while we have shops open, while we have everything open, unless it's emergency services, and we pause the stock markets, we pause construction, we pause car manufacturing, we pause everything, and we almost go to a ration state as if we're in a wartime, because let's face it, the only times we're in lockdown is in war times and stuff. This will continue forever.
I think I've noticed, obviously, most people watch this video know we're a security company. And obviously, throughout the pandemic, from the first lockdown, we've obviously still been operating because, that, you know, we supply key workers and things like that. My guys have gone out there putting themselves at risk on everything from testing sites to supermarkets. What's the feedback I've got is the first lockdown people took quite seriously. That's from my guys on the ground. That's also from me, because obviously I had to travel at times and the roads are very clear. I think the second lockdown was completely pointless because nobody listened to that one. And I do mean nobody. I was still stuck in traffic jams coming from Cannock here every morning. This third lockdown, yeah, I'd agree with Graham. I personally think people do think they're bulletproof, you know, and we still have situations where some of the supermarket chains that we look after, they've now come out and said that people have got to wear masks unless they have underlying health problems. The problem is a lot of people are just lying anyway and just saying, yeah, I've got a health problem. You can't challenge it. As security staff, we're not allowed to challenge it. And I do think that Graham's right, because of all that, and because of the way we live as a country, which I don't get me wrong, I'm fully for democracy and all that sort of thing, but I do think that, I don't know, there seems to be an attitude of I'll do what I want rather than what needs to be done. And yeah, I think I'd agree with Graham to a certain extent. We've got slightly different views on some parts of it, because I'm terrified of the idea of rations. You don't get a body like this being on rations. But yeah, I do agree that perhaps until, if we went to that route, would be the only way to cure it. But I think you'd have to do that worldwide, and I don't see that happening worldwide. So I don't think there's enough joined up thinking worldwide. So I think the vaccine is the best option. How
did the meeting go with the chair of the Conservative Party?
Very well. They're very supportive. They listen to our pleas. They've asked for the chief exec of the FA to give me a call. Not that they have yet. I'm still waiting on that a few weeks later. Sure, they're very busy, but disappointed that I haven't at least received a phone call. We're lobbying everyone who would be listening to us in order for a plea for a bit of assistance. We continue to talk to them. We'll see if that helps at all. We don't know. But at least our voice is being heard to a degree, and that's all we can do in terms of chairman of the club, of keep knocking the doors that we need to knock and be as high up as possible politically to have a voice that actually matters. And that's what we wanted to do. We came in to do, and that's what we're doing.
Governments, local government and national government, political parties in general, they've got enough to worry about. I get that. They've got a whole country to worry about. The FA, I suppose, the governing body for football, so they should be the people we get into contact with. But alas, we're still waiting. I think they're trying to Google who Hednesford Towm are and what step 3 is at the moment. So I'm sure they'll be in touch with Graham in due course.
So have the two of you been in touch with Keenan and his team over the Christmas period and the New Year, and what sort of stuff have you been discussing?
Yeah, we talk to them on a daily basis, 4 or 5 times a day as a minimum, probably. I would say there's myself, Terry, Aid, Keenan, Deeks, and Jemiah. We're a very tight team. We know exactly what's going on at all time, what they're thinking, what they're planning. We bounce ideas off each other. We say what's good. We say what's bad. We work as a team. The guys are then in contact with the rest of the football squad on a regular basis, making sure they're maintaining fitness, look after mental well-being as well, doing whatever they can under the circumstances. I was party to an academy coaching session yesterday, which was all done online. So all the players are in the back gardens, being taught as if they was at fives, for example.
Do you join in that in the back garden, Graham?
No, mate.
I was starting for some video of that. It would be quite fun.
On the swing. But yeah, I think as a team we're doing exceptionally well. The communications are exactly what we wanted. We're more than happy with the progress they're making. Keenan's currently working with the others to create a philosophy around the club about the footballing elements. I'm sure Keenan will be having separate discussions with yourself in the future to sort of unroll what he's doing and develop that further plans. But I think what he's trying to do, tell me if I'm wrong here, Aid, is make the team very difficult to beat, have their own individual brand and style of football, but we're trying to improve the team at all times, whether that's via personal development or player recruitment. He's continuing to look at new players. He's looking at, okay, what happens if we restart this season? What happens if we restart next season? He's looking at the project that we've got on with quite a few other clubs at the moment. Should it be a null and void season? So they're preparing for all avenues and opportunities. We sat there and we talked through every scenario as well of, okay, let's double the budget. Okay, let's zero the budget. And okay, where the budget is right now. We talked all scenarios through, depending on all eventualities. And when I just for the benefit of zero the budget, that was if they turned around and said we're allowed to play, but we've got no fans in, would prove a point. It would be difficult to the league and to the FA because we'll be damned if we're going to put the club in a position that will cripple everybody. It's not right. It's not fair. And we considered all scenarios because that's our job. It didn't come to that. It hasn't come to that. And we don't think it will. But we talked about it all. And even at that point, the guys didn't bat an eyelid to us and panic and go, oh, I can't do this. They was like, okay, well, whatever the solution is, whatever's needed, we'll work to that. That's our constraints. That's what you've employed us for. We're happy working with that. And they've been exceptional.
Yeah, I mean, again, it probably won't come to too much of a shock to those who know me that I was quite happy with us being difficult about things with the league if that had been the situation. But it would have been not just, again, just to briefly touch on that, that wasn't just being difficult because of Hednesford Towm's interest. That would have been being difficult to represent the interests of every club at non-league level, because it would have been a no-go situation for not just us, for a hell of a lot of clubs, and put them into a financial situation they would never recover from, and they would have gone under. Whether it was this season, next season, or the season after, they would have gone. So we would have done that to represent clubs. That is not me getting on a high horse and, you know, we're trying to get a night for services to non-league. It's about just doing the right thing. In terms of the management team, I've got to say that they're brilliant to work with. They really are great guys to work with, because it doesn't matter what we throw at them. Their passion seems to get them through it, and they just go, okay, well, we'll deal with it. As Graham says, they've got plans. We're working on 2 different plans. They're working on next season's plan and this season's, because until the moment where the leagues and the FA say it's over, we still have to work as if it's going to come back at any time. And that's what they're doing. But no, they're great guys to work with. And the philosophy they're trying to implement, not just in the first team, but they want to do it across the board, and a footballing philosophy for the club. Now, that sounds very cliche, but it works. And if everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet, do you know what? 9 times out of 10, you'll do all right out of it. And yeah, I've fully backed those guys, and I think they've been great to work with, and they're good fun as well.
So have you guys ever thought about offering Keys Park as a vaccination centre?
Yes, we've had discussions about that. The issues around that is, whilst we may be able to do it, because we haven't got a steer from the league of is it shut, is it not, will we restart a week later, we cannot give the ground up as a vaccination centre if they was to tell us a week later we're restarting, because how could we safely restart with a COVID vaccination centre at the entrance? It wouldn't be safe, it wouldn't be right. We haven't been given a good enough set to be able to make those decisions.
Yeah, the big thing is if we go down that route, as Graham says, you've got to think short and long term. So short term, we do it and they say in a week, in 2 weeks' time or whatever, okay, everything's back open, you can play again. All of a sudden, we've got to turn around to the government or the local government and say, right, well, we're not doing that now. That wouldn't be fair on the people who Cannock Chase. And you've also got to think long term in the exact same scenario. We don't know how long the vaccine programme is truly going to take. I know there's a lot of talk, but the simple fact is you'll only know once it's done. Now, if this vaccine programme takes up till Christmas, but we're coming back in August, September, again, it wouldn't be fair on the local government and the people of Cannock Chase for us to say, right, well, we're having that vaccination centre isn't one in the books, we're having it back for football. So it was something we discussed. If the local government did want to approach us, we would openly discuss it because it's for the benefit of the community.
Yeah.
But that would be, obviously, it would have to come with certain conditions, because we've got to act in the best interest of both parties there.
So have the two of you discussed a possible mini tournament with teams around us to replace a potential null and void season?
Yes.
Yeah, that's all we can say on that one. Yes.
So just to pressure on it more, that will only happen, be announced if we do have a null and void season and fans are allowed back in.
Yes. A lot of clubs, not just our area, I think there's a lot of areas having similar discussions, or I'd hope there is. If they're not there, there probably should be. But until we're allowed fans back in, and until we confirm we can play and train as close to normal as possible, then it's something that we're working on and ready to push the button when they do confirm. But yeah. So
regarding next season, has the current pandemic affected budgeting for it?
Yeah, we do it on a tenner.
No, our plans haven't changed in that respect. We're more than happy with where it's at. Obviously, without both the cups, we didn't move the budget. That's still the case. Whilst we've talked about literally all scenarios from zeroing a budget to doubling and tripling the budget, the budget is right. We've had the conversations. We're happy with the budget. Me and Aid have many conversations where Aid's looking at certain players going, this would be an unbelievable signing. Should we do it? Should we put the extra in? We have that conversation quite regular. We're doing the right thing by the club by balancing what is and should be a strong team to what the financials should be to make it sustainable. And that is a constant review. Even the management team, Keenan, Deeks, Jemiah, and Terry as well, they're involved in these conversations to talk to us about it, and they put their 2 pence in and we listen. It's not a one-way dictation where we just say this is what your constraint is, but to date, we all believe that it's good enough to be able to get us promoted.
I think the thing is, and again, we've had these discussions at length about things to do with budgets. And I get asked the question a lot, you know, why don't you throw this at it? And why don't we try and get this player in? And I just want to put something to people. History is littered with football clubs that tried to blow a load of money and to get promoted. And sometimes they actually did. It also gets to the point where the person throwing the money at it, for whatever reason, whether it's they run out of money, whether it's they lose interest, whether something happens, walk away. And when that happens, the simple fact is, unless there's somebody else to step in, 90% of the time, that club drops down and down and down. You've only got to look what's currently happening at Wigan Athletic. Dave Whelan was a fantastic chairman for that football club, got them into the Premier League. Okay? Wigan Athletic, as a size of their club, are probably not a Premier League club on paper, but they were, and they sustained Premier League football. When Dave Whelan walked away from that football club because he called it a day and time to retire, you've only got to look at what's happened there, where I was talking to a Wigan fan the other day. They're genuinely fearful of whether they're going to have a club anymore. Now, our budget has always been based upon sustainability, short and long term, whilst also making sure it's capable of getting us in promotion places. And we won't change that. We still want, the programme is still the same. Let's get up and let's do it. But it's not let's get up at all costs. And if it don't work, oh, well, the club's gone tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? So whilst the budget won't move, for the right player, maybe, you know, we've always said, for the right player, we'd find, you know, an extra couple of quid if we had to, if it was something that Keenan, Deeks and Jemiah wanted. But those guys aren't like that. They don't operate like that. They don't just throw money at players. They believe in value for money, which I think is key. And I think everybody at Hednesford Towm needs to also understand that. And they do understand that from the sports I've spoken to. Value for money is important. Nobody wants to see a player on 600 quid a week, you know, who doesn't play well.
The interesting thing for me is we've never actually said what our budget is on purpose, so other clubs can't use it against us. We've always said that. We've kept the same budget all the way through, but I've been reading various comments where we've brought certain players in and the people are saying, well, they can't be coming in cheap. That's a great signing. The budget's remained the same from the start. It's been a competitive budget.
No, we did change it slightly, right, if you remember once. We put it up slightly once, didn't we?
Yes, we did, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, we did up it. Why did you talk me into that?
I had a drink. The Jaeger had been out that day.
But also, you know, who's to say that we aren't throwing a lot on the budget at the moment, because we've never said what it is. So people take as what they want. For every positive, you'll get a negative. But we all know, and management all agrees with this, it's competitive enough to get us promoted, for sure.
People always talk about other people's budgets. We get told, oh, so-and-so's got this. One club in our league, I've been told 6 separate figures that have got a £2,000 a week difference. You'll know what I'm on about, Graham. I'm not going to say that because it's not fair on them. But and this was in the space of 2 weeks. They've got X amount, they've got X amount. And it's over 6 different figures. People guess, because no club's coming out there and saying what their budget is, and understandably so. So for all I know, in reality, we could have the biggest budget in the league. We could also have the worst budget in the league, I don't know, but it's what we believe and what the guys believe is what will get us up.
We saw Dan Turner leave this week. Do you think there'll be a case of more players possibly leaving to go to the leagues above?
I want to say no, but I'm also a realist. These lads want to play football. It's not just about moving up divisions. It's about how much you're being able to play. It's one of the issues I've got with the setup at the moment with the division above and our division. Most clubs, if not, I think there is a handful of full-time clubs at National League North, but generally they're part-time clubs. No bigger than ourselves, but they're allowed to play football. So they're going to attract the very best players, not just from us, this is from the whole of Step 3. They're going to attract the very best players, and they're going to do it cheap. Okay? And they're going to persuade, I'm not talking about Leamington there, by the way, with Dan Turner or anything like that. I'm not digging at anybody. They're going to attract these players because these lads want to play football. As I've said many times, these lads ain't in it for the money, because if they were, they wouldn't bother to play non-league football they play because they want to play football. Right now, any club, there could be the worst club in the division in the National League North or South, they could be bottom of the league, not won a game all season, not scored a goal, playing the Tin Pot ground, all right? And the lads will still want to play there right now because they want to play the football. What we'll say is, we're building, yeah, all we can do is carry on as we have been, which is building for this season if it comes back, or next season. But at the same time, I do want to mention Dan. So I've seen a couple of people make some good comments, and also there's been a couple of people questioning it. The simple fact is, I can't blame Dan. Dan's a young lad who wants to play football, okay? And he's a great kid. He really is. Great footballer and a great lad. I've also got to say, Leamington, nice club, they handled it really well, and they were above board in things. It's a really difficult situation right now. We could never turn around, and me and Graham are not them kind of people, and neither's the management team, to say to somebody, no, we're not going to wait the 7 days. No, you can't go and play for somebody else. You've got to sit here and not play football.
We always said we want to attract the best footballers that we can possibly get our hands on. In order to do that, sometimes we're going to lose good players because they move on to bigger clubs, higher clubs, whatever reason. The only way we're going to attract the best players is by showing progress, whether that's us as a club progressing. But let's be realistic, a club cannot climb divisions as quickly as a player can. A player can move from club to club and climb 2-3 divisions overnight. We as a club cannot. We have to go through the promotions. So we will lose some players during the process of seasons. It's inevitable. It's the division we're in as well. But in order to get the best, we've got to show that there's a career path for them, whether it's at Hednesford Towm long term or via progression, because you get noticed at our club to go to bigger and better things. And if we want the best, we've got to not hold people back at the same time.
Yeah.
So finally, before we go, have you got any message for the fans?
Yeah, I thought you was going to jump in there, Nate.
I'll let you go first, and I'll go on.
Yeah, just stay safe, everybody. We're doing everything we can. Rest assured, look after yourselves, look after your families and your friends. Talk to each other. Zoom calls, Teams meetings, Facebook portal, WhatsApp video calls, FaceTime, you name it. Just look after each other, talk to each other. And we look forward to seeing you all back as soon as we're allowed to.
Yeah, from me, thank you to all the fans that I've spoke to, whether it's Facebook, forums and all this sort of stuff. Above all, just stick with us. You know, we'll be back. But for now, just stay safe and, like I say, worry about your families, worry about your health. Make sure you stay, you know, follow the government guidelines. Again, without getting political, I know some people agree with them, some people don't. Just follow them, because ultimately, whether they're right or wrong, they're not going to hurt you by following them. So do the right thing with each other, look after each other, and like I said, we will see everybody back soon. I look forward to everyone buying me a Jagerbomb.
Thank you guys for doing this.
No worries, Dan.
Take care.